9 luxury watch brands that once defined status are now being dumped at record discounts. Models like Tag Heuer can lose 70% of their value overnight. The old promise of owning a timeless investment has fallen apart as unsold stock piles up and tastes shift without warning. So what broke the market's spell, and why are even icons suddenly forgotten? Here is what the data really reveals. WatchChart's Global Market Index serves as a barometer for the pre-owned luxury watch market, and its trajectory since mid-2022 leaves little room for debate. For 11 consecutive quarters, the index has recorded a steady, unbroken decline. The surge that followed the pandemic, fueled by speculative buying and unprecedented demand, has not only faded but reversed, erasing nearly all of the gains that once seemed permanent. Each quarter, the numbers have fallen further, with no meaningful recovery. The data is unambiguous. What was once a rising tide has become a receding one, and the scale of the downturn is now impossible to dismiss. The impact is most visible in the marquee models that defined the boom. The Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711, a watch that came to symbolize the feverish heights of the market, reached a peak of $200,000 on the secondary market. Today, that same reference trades for around $108,000, a staggering 45% drop in less than 3 years. The Rolex Daytona Panda, another icon of the speculative era, has seen its resale price fall from over $50,000 to just $28,000. Even the Submariner date, long considered a safe haven for collectors and investors, now sits at $13,000, down from $18,000 at its peak. These are not outliers or isolated corrections. They are representative of a broader pattern that has swept across the industry. Auction results and dealer listings echo the same message. Screenshots from platforms like Chrono24 and WatchCharts display a landscape transformed. Red trend lines dominate, asking prices are repeatedly slashed, and listings once marked by waitlists now feature bargain banners. The promise that luxury watches would reliably hold or increase in value has collided with a new reality, one defined by oversupply, recalibrated demand, and a more cautious buyer base. Dealers who once struggled to source inventory now find themselves negotiating with increasingly selective clients. Collectors who watched values soar during the boom are recalculating their strategies in the face of persistent declines. The numbers speak with clarity. The 11-quarter slide is not a matter of speculation or sentiment, but of hard, measurable fact. The correction is broad, sustained, and documented at every level of the market. The data leaves no doubt. The era of automatic appreciation has ended, at least for now. Buyers who once lined up for the latest release are now asking harder questions. The luxury watch market is no longer a one-way bet, and the reasons run deeper than a simple drop in prices. Demand has fractured, shaped by a new set of forces changing what sells and what sits. EY's 2025 Luxury Client Index describes a barbell effect. The ultra-wealthy still buy icons from Hermes and Cartier, but the middle-class aspirational buyer, the engine of entry-level luxury, has pulled back. Swatch Group's sales in China have slumped, and volume-driven brands that once counted on steady growth from this segment are facing a slow recovery that has not materialized. Beneath the surface, the pre-owned boom has rewritten the rules. Younger buyers, especially those under 40, are far more comfortable hunting for value online than waiting for a boutique call. The share of pre-owned transactions in luxury watches has surged, with platforms like Chrono24 and WatchCharts documenting a steady rise in secondhand trading volume. For many, the idea of paying full retail feels outdated when the same watch can be found at a steep discount with a few clicks. This shift pulls pricing power away from brands and toward the open market, eroding the sense that a luxury watch is a reliable store of value. Meanwhile, the quiet luxury movement has upended the old playbook. The era of bold logos and oversized cases has given way to a preference for subtlety, simple dials, clean lines, and watches that do not announce themselves. Loro Piana and Hermes set the tone, and even in watches, the understated Oyster Perpetual now signals more taste than a diamond-studded statement piece. Brands built on conspicuous design or mass-market visibility are struggling to adapt as buyers chase minimalism and discretion. Technology has taken its own toll. Apple Watches and wearables dominate the wrists of younger professionals, shrinking the pool of daily mechanical watch wearers. For many, function and connectivity outweigh the romance of Swiss engineering. The result is a shrinking market for traditional watches among younger consumers, especially at the entry luxury tier. Global trade policy adds yet another headwind. The US has long imposed a complex web of tariffs and duties on imported watches, with ad valorem rates and per jewel charges that can push effective duties into double digits for high-end mechanical pieces. While not a sudden shock, these costs quietly chip away at margins and retail pricing flexibility, especially for brands already under pressure. These forces combine to create a new reality. Brands that once counted on scale, broad distribution, or a recognizable logo are now exposed. Oversupply, changing tastes, and a more skeptical, value-driven buyer have transformed the market. The stage is set for a reckoning, not just for individual models, but for the very idea of what makes a luxury watch desirable and who is willing to pay for it. Tag Heuer once stood for the thrill of motorsport and the precision of Swiss chronographs. The Carrera, launched in 1963, was a fixture on the wrists of racing legends. Steve McQueen immortalized the Monaco in the film Le Mans, cementing the brand's place in pop culture. But the qualities that made Tag Heuer an icon have faded behind a wall of mass production and mall displays. After LVMH acquired Tag Heuer in 1999, the focus shifted from exclusivity to volume. By the early 2000s, Tag watches were everywhere, in department stores, airport shops, and jewelry chains. The Carrera and Formula One lines became graduation gifts and impulse buys instead of coveted prizes. CEO Jean-Christophe Babin spoke openly about making Tag Heuer the accessible face of luxury. That strategy paid off in raw sales, but it came at the cost of prestige. Scarcity vanished, and so did the sense that owning a tag meant something special. The consequences are clearest in the secondary market. On Chrono 24, modern Carrera Caliber 5 and Caliber 16 models routinely list for 35 to 55% below retail. Formula One pieces, often priced at $1,700 to $2,000 in boutiques, appear pre-owned for $700 to $900, a loss of 50 to 60% the moment the box is opened. Across the catalog, it is normal for Tag Heuer watches to lose 60 or even 70% of their value as soon as they hit the resale market. For anyone hoping for a safe investment, the numbers are a wake-up call. Collectors and enthusiasts still respect the brand's history, but Tag is now seen as a first step into Swiss watches, not a destination. The volume play that once filled balance sheets now fills gray market listings and dealer inventories. The lesson is clear: when a luxury brand becomes too easy to buy, it becomes just as easy to ignore. Breitling once stood for cockpit precision and the golden age of aviation. The Navitimer, with its slide rule bezel, became the essential pilot's chronograph in the 1950s, and for decades the brand's identity was as clear as its dials were busy. But in recent years that clarity has faded. Since CVC Capital Partners took control in 2017 and installed George Kern as chief executive officer, Breitling has cycled through a series of rebrands. The winged B logo was dropped, vintage cues were revived, and the collection was reshuffled more than once. One-year oversized tool watches filled the cases. The next lifestyle campaigns with Hollywood faces promised a new direction. Loyalists debate every change, but the market's verdict is visible in the numbers. On gray market platforms, brand new Breitling chronographs routinely list 20 to 30% below the manufacturer's suggested retail price. Even authorized dealers have trouble moving stock at full price, especially outside the Navitimer line. In the pre-owned space, it is common to see modern Breitlings trading at just 60 to 75% of their original retail price. For a brand that once sold itself as the choice of professionals, the constant search for a new identity has left buyers uncertain and quick to negotiate. Hublot's story runs in the opposite direction, but the result lands in the same place. Since the Big Bang's debut in 2005, Hublot has thrived on being loud, gold fused with rubber, sapphire, ceramic, and a logo you cannot miss. Celebrity partnerships and sports sponsorships kept the brand in the spotlight, but the rise of quiet luxury has turned that spotlight harsh. Collectors and younger buyers now see oversized, flashy designs as try-hard, not tasteful. Underneath the bold exteriors, the technical story is mixed. While Hublot has pushed into in-house calibers over the past decade, many high-priced Big Bang models, some listing well into six figures, still rely on modified ETA or Sellita movements. The HUB 4100, for example, is based on the ETA 7750, a workhorse found in watches a fraction of the price. For buyers who care about what is inside, that disconnect is tough to overlook. On the secondary market, Hublots with generic movements and maximalist styling can lose 40 to 60% of their value almost immediately. The gap between price and perception has never been wider. In a market chasing subtlety, both brands are reminders that story and substance matter more than ever. Omega's reputation rests on two pillars: the Speedmaster and the Seamaster. These models, steeped in space and cinema history, have become blue-chip assets in the eyes of collectors. On the resale market, Speedmasters and core Seamaster divers commonly retain 70 to 85% of their original retail price, sometimes even trading above retail price for limited editions. But the rest of Omega's extensive catalog tells a different story. DeVille and Constellation models, despite their technical quality, struggle to hold ground. Watch Charts data shows these lines often resell at just 50 to 65% of their boutique price. The split is stark. Two icons drive the brand's prestige and value, while the remainder languishes, caught in a cycle of discounts and slow turnover. For authorized dealers, this internal imbalance means that inventory piles up outside the hero lines, forcing them to negotiate or quietly move stock to the gray market. Montblanc faces a different kind of challenge. Known first for fine pens, the brand's push into watches has never fully convinced the horological world. Even with the acquisition of Minerva's storied movement workshop, most Montblanc watches are seen as lifestyle accessories rather than serious collector's pieces. The result is visible in pricing. On the secondary market, new Montblanc watches often sell 25 to 45% below their official retail price. Forum threads and dealer anecdotes describe a world where double-digit discounts are expected, not exceptional. Buyers report that 15 to 25% off is routine at authorized dealers, with 30% or more possible when bundling a watch with pens or leather goods. For many, the retail price is just a starting point for negotiation. Retailers, meanwhile, face pressure to stock Montblanc's watches as part of broader group commitments, meaning inventory can linger and clearance sales become a necessary tactic to clear the shelves. Both cases highlight how uneven demand within a brand's own lineup can undermine pricing power and dilute the sense of exclusivity. When buyers learn to expect discounts or see entire collections trading well below retail, the brand's strength starts to erode at the edges, leaving only a handful of models to carry the weight. Chopard occupies a curious place in the luxury watch world. The brand's reputation is built on high jewelry, with boutiques that sparkle from Geneva to Shanghai. But its watchmaking arm, especially the LUC division, quietly produces some of the finest in-house movements in Switzerland. Geneva seal finishing, micro-rotor calibers, and hand-finished details earn praise from serious collectors and critics alike. The result is world-class craft. Yet when it comes to visibility in the collector market, Chopard is almost invisible. Scan the catalogs of major Geneva and Hong Kong watch auctions from 2019 to 2024, and a pattern stands out. Rolex and Patek Philippe each command dozens of lots per sale. Omega, Cartier, and Jaeger-LeCoultre appear in double digits. Chopard often shows one or two watches, and sometimes none at all. Even across several years, Chopard's total watch lots at these headline auctions are an order of magnitude lower than its peers, roughly 10 times fewer than Omega or Cartier, and far below the volumes of Rolex or Patek. Secondary market analytics rarely bother to give Chopard its own index, underscoring just how little it trades among enthusiasts. For most buyers, Chopard means jewelry first, and its watches, no matter how well made, struggle to earn the same attention or liquidity. The result is a paradox. World-class making, but almost no presence in the spaces that set collector status and resale value. In a market that prizes story and scarcity, Chopard's watches remain hidden in plain sight. Zenith's reputation rests on one of watchmaking's most important technical achievements, the El Primero chronograph movement. Introduced in 1969, it beat at an unprecedented 36,000 vibrations per hour, allowing for timing to a tenth of a second, an engineering feat that set the standard for high-frequency chronographs. Decades later, Zenith has continued to push the envelope. The DFI Labs monolithic silicon oscillator replaced dozens of moving parts with a single ultra-precise component, and the DFI collection offers chronographs capable of measuring 1/100th of a second. In terms of movement innovation, few brands can match Zenith's track record. Yet technical excellence has not translated into broad market demand. Modern DFI models, despite their advanced technology, are widely available at authorized dealers and on gray market sites, often at 25 to 40% below retail price. Watch Charts data shows many recent Zenith releases trading at just 60 to 70% of the manufacturer's suggested retail price within a year of launch. Even the El Primero, Once a grail among collectors, now competes with a crowded field of chronographs and struggles to command a premium outside a handful of vintage references. The gap between what Zenith achieves in the lab and what resonates in the marketplace is hard to ignore. Collectors praise the brand's engineering, but without a clear cultural story or visible icons, technical prestige alone has not been enough to drive demand or protect resale value. Zenith remains a favorite among movement enthusiasts, but for most buyers, its watches are brilliant and overlooked. IWC's modern catalog is a study in uneven momentum. The big Pilot and Portugueser lines still attract attention, but much of the rest, Portofino, Da Vinci, and even some Aquatimer models, sits quietly in dealer cases, waiting for buyers who rarely appear. Portofino and Da Vinci references, in particular, are now widely discounted at authorized dealers and on gray market sites. It is common to see new Portofinos offered 20 to 30% below retail, with Da Vinci models faring little better. Forums and dealer reports confirm that these watches linger, sometimes bundled with more desirable pieces just to move inventory. The result is a brand that looks broad on paper, but depends on a shrinking circle of true hits to drive sales. Audemars Piguet faces a different but equally risky predicament. The Royal Oak, especially the classic 5500 and 15202 references, remains one of the most coveted watches in the world, with secondary prices still commanding a premium over retail even after the wider market correction. But outside the Royal Oak, AP shelves are crowded with slow sellers. The Code 11.59 collection, launched with fanfare in 2019, was meant to diversify the brand's appeal. Instead, it has struggled to find an audience. On the secondary market, Code 11.59 models routinely trade below retail, and dealers often use them as leverage, offering a Code 11.59 to buyers hoping for a Royal Oak allocation. Auction results echo the story. Non-Royal Oak APs appear infrequently and rarely spark bidding wars. These patterns drive home a simple rule. In today's market, value flows to brands with a clear story and tightly managed scarcity. When a brand's identity is scattered across too many references, or when all the heat is concentrated in a single icon, everything else becomes dead weight. For IWC and Audemars Piguet, the lesson is unmistakable. Coherence and controlled supply decide who stays relevant and who gets left behind. Luxury isn't just about heritage or price, it's about cultural relevance right now. As digital natives shape taste and tech wearables outsell Swiss icons, even the oldest brands can find themselves obsolete overnight. In a market where value evaporates with a trend, legacy alone won't save you. The next chapter of luxury will be written by those who adapt or disappear. What brand do you think is next? Drop your thoughts below.